Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel where I'm showing you how to make recipes from my book, Delicious Gluten Free Meals. And today we're in the absolute basics chapter making one of my favourite go-to recipes, and that is my gluten free gnocchi. Now I love gnocchi, but it's really hard to find it gluten free in the supermarket, which is weird because it's basically potato. However, I'm going to show you just how easy it is to make at home, and actually this works out so much cheaper than buying it. And it's a really fun project. You'll find this recipe on page 34 of my book. So let's get cooking. Now to start off with, you want floury potatoes. So I always use Maris Piper or King Edward potatoes, which are my favourites. And you want to put them in the oven to basically bake. Now these have been in the oven for about 1 hour and 20 minutes until you can push a knife through and they're completely soft in the middle. And then I left them to cool. Normally I'd say leave them to cool until you can touch them without burning yourself. But I actually made these last night, so they are completely cool and at room temperature. Now the first thing we're going to do is cut these open. We only want the flesh that's in the middle, but I can highly recommend keeping the skins, pop them in the air fryer with a little bit of oil and they go so crispy, and you can use them with dips or you can stuff them with whatever you like. But anyway, keep hold of the skins, don't waste them, but I'm going to scoop out the flesh. And I'm going to pop it into a pan because we're going to mash it up. So try and get as much of the flesh out as you can, and don't forget none of the skin, just the flesh. And so I've got about 5 potatoes, but obviously it depends on the size. So if you have smaller ones, they won't take as long to bake, and if you have bigger ones, they might take a bit longer. But as long as you have the right amount of potatoes, weight-wise, it's in the book, then you'll be okay. Okay, once I've got my pan of potato flesh, I then need to mash it up. Now I'm going to do this with a potato masher because that's what I have, but you could use a food processor, you could use a potato ricer, as long as you get it as mashed up as possible. Now I don't know if I mentioned that this is also a great workout. Okay, that's nice and mashed up. Now this is the part where if this recipe was being made, if your potatoes were still hot, I would tell you to leave that now to completely cool at room temperature. However, as mine have been out overnight, it's absolutely fine for me to crack on. And speaking of cracking, the next thing you're going to need is your egg yolks. Yes, that was a terrible joke, I'm so sorry. So we only need the yolks from these eggs, but again, I would say don't waste the egg whites. You can use them to make something like a lemon meringue pie. I've got an amazing citrus meringue pie in the book, which is so good. But yeah, you can use them for other things. You can add them to omelettes, so just don't throw them away. They'll keep in the fridge for a couple of days. So I need to separate my eggs first, so I'm going to do that here. And this is the way that I find it easiest to do. You can pour it through an egg separator, you can sometimes pour it through your hands as well, so you trap the yolk, but to me, that's just the best way to do it. And now I'm simply going to add my egg yolks into my potato mix. So I literally just pour this in. And then I'm just going to mix that together, and it will start to go kind of sticky. Now once you can see that that is all combined, we're going to add some gluten-free flour, and I've just got plain gluten-free flour that I've measured out, which I'm going to add to my pan. And this is why so many gnocchi recipes are not gluten-free, because they add wheat flour. However, this one just uses a plain gluten-free flour blend, and it works like an absolute charm. I'm just going to keep mixing this together until it kind of forms a smooth dough. And once we get to that point, I'm going to turn it out onto the work surface and knead it. So I'm just going to start kneading this because, to be honest, I find it a lot quicker and easier. So once it's starting to form a bit of a dough like this, I'm going to turn it on to a work surface, but first I'm going to flour it so that it doesn't stick. So I'm just using some extra flour to dust my work surface here, and then I'm going to turn this dough out onto the board. Now, as I said before with gluten-free stuff, you don't have to worry about over kneading, because normally the worry with that is that you're overworking the gluten, but obviously there's no gluten in this, so you can knead it until it forms a nice smooth ball. Try not to add too much extra flour to the mix, you just want enough on here so that it doesn't stick. And that is our gnocchi dough ready. So to make this easier, I'm going to divide this into quarters. And then I'm going to take one of the quarters and I'm going to roll it into a long sausage shape. Now we want it to be about 2.5 centimetres thick, so that's about 1 inch. Once we have our sausage, we're going to cut that into inch-long pieces, which will basically be our gnocchi. So I'm using a sharp knife just to make sure that it goes through, nothing sticks, and you can put a bit of flour on it if you want to make sure that nothing gets stuck to it. So now we have these lovely little gnocchi shapes. But if you want to make a more traditional gnocchi shape, we're going to take a piece and press our thumb into it like that. So we've got a little dimple, and then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to roll it around this fork so that it gets these cute little dimples. Don't know why, there's just something really therapeutic about doing this. So I've got my little dimple, do my little rolls. It's like a really mindful task to do in the kitchen. I just love it. Okay, once you've rolled out all your gnocchi, you're simply going to get a baking tray and a sheet of baking paper. And then we're going to lay all the gnocchi out on it. Now this needs to go into the fridge, and this is so that the gnocchi can chill nicely and firm up before it goes into the boiling water. Now, if you want to freeze any gnocchi, I recommend freezing it on the tray like this and then transferring that into a bag or a tub once it's frozen so that it all doesn't stick together. Okay, that's my gnocchi ready to go into the fridge, and when it's chilled, I'll show you how easy it is to cook. So when your gnocchi's nearly ready, get a pan of water, add a good pinch of salt, pop the lid on and let it come to the boil. Once your water is at a nice rolling boil, get your gnocchi out of the fridge, and then we're just going to add them in, pop the lid back on and wait until they start floating. So now we can see they've literally been on 2 minutes and they're all floating to the surface, which means they're ready. I'm going to use my slotted spoon to remove them into a bowl so I can coat them with sauce and tuck in. Just look at that steaming, beautiful bowl. Now I've got a really simple sauce to go with this gnocchi, and it's actually in my book. So a few pages before this recipe, you'll find my arrabbiata sauce. And this is a lovely, rich, tomatoey, spicy sauce, and it's so good. And I've got leftovers from the other night, so I'm going to stir this through my gnocchi now and then serve it up with a bit of grated cheese. And sometimes with a recipe like this, simplicity is best. I've got a few gnocchi recipes. I've got one which has a sage butter in it, which is amazing and ready in just a few minutes. I've got my gnocchi alla norma, which is a tomatoey aubergine dish. And I've got a really indulgent bacon and brie gnocchi if you want something a bit special. And of course I'll finish that off with some parmesan. And there it is, one bowl of steaming, pillowy, potatoey goodness. I cannot wait to tuck into this. I hope this has shown you how easy it is to make your own gnocchi, and if you make a big batch, you could double or even triple the quantities in the book, and you can freeze it, and then you can store it separately and defrost it when you want it, or cook it from frozen, and it's just the perfect, quick and easy meal. If you like this recipe and you want to see more like this, hit subscribe and watch the rest of the playlist where I'm showing you how to make recipes from delicious gluten-free meals. I'll put everything you need to know in the description down below. And if you have bought the book, please do leave a review because it does mean a lot. I'm going to go and enjoy this delicious bowl of gnocchi, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye!